Speaking on Monday night at the close of the ANC Lekgotla on the economy, the president said it's all about infrastructure and implementation. We know, of course, it's also a main focus of the two-day cabinet Lekgotla, which is currently underway. Well, the man in the president's office who heads up investment and infrastructure is former Tshwane Mayor Dr. Kgosientso Ramokgopa, and he joins me now. Good evening, Dr. Ramokgopa. Thanks so much for your time. So there's a lot on the go, and there's a lot on your desk, I'm sure. But on Sunday, the first phase of the Mooikloof mega residential city was launched southeast of Pretoria. That's a huge operation. It's a private sector partnership. It's aimed at providing housing for those who cannot afford a bond but don't qualify for free housing. It really has wonderful aims and ambitions. But as the president said, Khawuleza, which means hurry up, doesn't it? How are you going to make sure that this project, first and foremost, hurries up?
No, thank you very much, Sally, for the invitation, and good evening to the viewers of eNCA. Just to say that this is part of a package of projects that we announced post the Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium that we held on the 23rd of June. And that's the first phase of the project pipeline that is meant to stimulate aggregate demand. And on the back of that, we hope to stimulate the supply side, mainly construction and manufacturing, and then create job opportunities. If you remember, we were able to present about 50 projects for funding to the funding fraternity in the country, and they attracted investments of 340 billion rands. And I know that I was once here on eNCA, and one of the first questions that were asked is that the government has been making pronouncements before. Are we ever going to see implementation? And yes, indeed. Mooikloof is the second of these projects that we have unveiled. The first one is a 2.6 billion rands, also human settlement development, and Mooikloof is 34 billion rands. As you correctly mentioned, collaboration with the private sector. The state only provides a bulk infrastructure to unlock the capacity in that area in the form of wastewater treatment plants, water treatment works, energy, and also open up the road to accommodate the anticipated traffic that will be generated by this development. And also part of the transformation components of that is the point we made earlier on, that the people who are generally referred to as the missing middle in the housing market. So they earn too much to be provided 100% subsidy for housing, what we call RDP, and they can attract sufficient debt financing from the banks, commercial banks, for them to locate in their areas of the choice. So it has those transformation aspects, and obviously it's also about capturing localization. Procurement of the inputs that goes into that must be procured locally so that we broaden the different base.
So when will the first families be moving into the first units?
Oh, I think the commitment that the developer has made was that in the next 6 months, I'm sure that the first phase is about 15,000 units. So we should be seeing some of these families moving in. Let me confirm that on the day of the inauguration of that project, already we had about 222 of the applications being approved, and 50 of those applications, they qualify for FLISP. FLISP really is a financial instrument in government that is meant to subsidize people in that income bracket so that we relieve their debt servicing costs. So they can get a subsidy of up to 121,000 rands. For an example, if you earn, say, 15,000 rand per month household income and you apply for FLISP, you can get a subsidy of up to 80,000 rand. And if you like, that's your first tranche for the deposit. So it's going to bring down your debt servicing costs. So and suddenly you are able to open up the market and allow for greater people to participate in that market.
I can hear that a lot is being done, and there's definitely energy and movement around this project. But there's also controversy around this project. Just a day ago, allegations from Black First, Land First, that the president has a conflict of interest, and they are claiming that Baldwin Properties, which is in charge of this development from the private sector side, may have been the donor that gave the president 30 million rand towards the CR17 campaign. So there's an easy way to clear it up. Did
Yes,
Baldwin
yes.
Properties donate to the president's ANC campaign in 2017? Yes or no?
No, I wouldn't know that detail, but this is an important detail I need to share with you and the viewers, and thanks for raising that question. When the application was made to the office for us to unlock that project, and the application that went to Tshwane to get the proper rezoning and the rights to have that kind of integrated development, the primary sponsor is not Baldwin. Baldwin is not the primary sponsor of this development. It came through one developer, and once the approvals were then granted, the developer felt that
but
it
they're
doesn't
still
possess the
critically
necessary
involved.
capacity.
Sure, but they're critically
again?
involved. They are critically involved. So let's not split hairs
Yes.
here.
No. The point I'm making is that when the approvals were made, it wasn't Baldwin that was before us. All the applications were then received and approved. And then the developer who then had those rights and the approvals engage with Baldwin to help him with the capacity that Baldwin has to take the project forward.
So he's essentially a subcontractor, are you saying?
No. They've entered into a shareholding agreement and they've split the project. So the point I'm making is that what was before us when we were considering this is not Baldwin. It's a different developer. And the developer then entered into a negotiation with Baldwin post the fact. So that's an important material point that I think I should bring before you.
No, I hear your
point.
point.
But the point also is the following, is that we're looking at the merits of the project. So I wouldn't know who donated to who when. I guess that is a subject for another conversation. We are interested in ensuring that
so
the
you
economy
don't,
goes
all right, so
job.
you don't know if Baldwin ever gave any money to President Ramaphosa, but you say that they weren't the direct recipients of this, even though they're critically involved. Are the documents around this open for perusal? Because, and you know, whether there's substance to the Black First, Land First allegations or not, I think the crucial point here is we have seen so much corruption that there cannot be even a whiff of anything going wrong with any of these mega bucks productions. You are ultimately going to have your head on the chopping block if there is any corruption. How are you going to monitor this? Because you're not only Mr. Implementation, you're Mr. Investment Gatherer as well. There's lots of money swirling around here. We need this desperately to grow our economy. If there's any corruption, it's going to be an absolute disaster. What are you doing to make sure it doesn't happen?
Sally, you are absolutely correct. So we don't want that to swell this project. I think the other material point is that it's a 34 billion rands project, and 34 billion of that money comes from the developer. It's an important part to make. It doesn't come from the coffers of the state. What comes from the coffers of the state is for us to unlock the bulk, and as we unlock the bulk, it will go through a procurement process as stipulated in the law, and that will be run both by the City of Tshwane and the Gauteng provincial government, and it will also have embedded in them the transformation component. The second part is exactly the point, the point that requires attention. Part of the conversations that are happening also at the Lekgotla, the Cabinet Lekgotla, you made mention of that, and I'm sure at the right time the President will announce to the country what the plan is about, is that we need to ensure that we place special focus and attention on ensuring that we address malfeasance, leakage, and corruption. And all what we're doing two things. The first part is that the private sector wants to have see-through. By see-through, they mean they want to be comfortable that every stage of the project is clean, of the project life cycle, because that has got an impact on their credibility and reputation. So that's the first part. The second part is on the state. Remember that I said, although the office facilitates investments in infrastructure, the rollout sits with either the local authority, provincial authority, or some of the SOEs. We will provide an additional oversight to ensure that every stage of the project is clean. And you raised an important point. Is this open for scrutiny? The answer is an emphatic yes, including this project of Baldwin, to make sure that we are able to build confidence going forward. So all I'm saying is that I'm considering that if we don't pay special attention to potential areas of leakage, malfeasance, and corruption, it's going to undermine all of this effort and diminish the reputation of the state. So it is in our collective interest that we are able to address.
Don't you think, and these sound like excellent suggestions, but don't you think, as the head of the implementation project within the presidency, that you should ask the president if there's any potential conflict of interest with Baldwin properties who are involved in this mega project. I'm just thinking, you don't want to be blindsided. You need to know. Don't you think you should be asking the president, why is it such a state secret?
Oh, no. Remember, that's not my space. Who sponsored who at which point?
But couldn't it become your space? Couldn't it become your space? And isn't it now your space? Because the allegations of a conflict of interest. Surely this is a sort of thing where you can categorically inform you that we have asked this, there is or there isn't. Because even if there is a donation, one could then say, yes, but the president was not aware of it and it had nothing to do, and we can explain why. Don't you think this is a exact sort of question you should be asking the president?
Well, let me reiterate again, Sadia. So I think that's not my space. My space is to ensure that we are able to evaluate projects on their merit, what is before us, and also to ensure that those who are responsible for that evaluation are the ones who must then declare if there's a conflict of interest as is stipulated in law. And that's something that we have done in this process. And all other projects, the 50 projects that we are unveiling from time to time, and in fact, also in the next phase of the projects that will be gazetted, that's going to become our primary interest. Let me reiterate that if there's any hint of malfeasance, leakage, and corruption, is going to soil all that we're doing. So on the basis of the facts that are before us, and I just reiterated before you, this is open to everyone, is transparent, the process that we've been running, the applications that Baldwin has been making. Remember, they've been making this township application, rezoning, and also issues around density to the city of Tshwane since 2017, and that culminated in the state where the project was ready to be launched. All they needed was for bulk infrastructure to be provided. They bring the quantum of 34 billion rands. We bring 1.1 billion rands to open that. And the 1.1 billion rands, like I said, is the split between the city of Tshwane and the Gauteng provincial government. So there is no way in the equation that you'll find the principal or the president being involved. We are looking at the merits of the case before us, and we are convinced and satisfied that what is before us suggests that this is a project that should be supported. Let me confirm the following, that we have had a productive engagement with the national office bearers of the Black Business Council, which is an umbrella body that represents the interests of black business in the country, together with their constituents members who are in the infrastructure and property space. And we have agreed on the following, that the infrastructure investment plan must not just focus on reconstruction and recovery, must also emphasize transformation, including in the property sector, including in the value chain, who gets to benefit from offtakes, and those must be transformed entities, including going forward the developers that are benefiting from the totality of this investment. And we have agreed that we're going to have a much thoroughgoing conversation before the end of next week and get to unveil, so that all of these things are transparent. Every time when we get to announce the project, you'll be able to ask those type of questions
I'm pleased that you've come on to speak to us, to address these issues, to be transparent, because this is the only way we're going to get through. And I just wish you the very best of luck. This is the man. Thank you very much for your time as well. Of course, former Tshwane Mayor Kgosientso Ramokgopa, he is the man in the President's office tasked with investment and infrastructure, explaining that at the Cabinet Lekgotla they have spoken today about two very key ways for the private sector and the state to keep the system open and transparent as these massive infrastructure projects get off the ground.